Who is God and who is the Creator? A lot of people will want to put me to the sword if I were to tell you today that what most people call God is not necessarily the ultimate creator of everything, but rather a powerful being who happened to create mankind in his own image. Hello and welcome to a brand new video series here on the Ultimate Enlightenment channel. In this series, we seek to unpack what a God truly is, who people across the globe are actually calling out to when they pray, and who the true ultimate source of the cosmos actually is. We will break down what it really means to serve these higher powers. More importantly, we will examine why understanding this is a literal matter of life and death, exploring the cosmic consequences of alignment versus defiance. Together, we will map out the spiritual hierarchy, identifying the specific entities ruling as the God of heaven, the God of the earth, and the God of the underworld. To uncover these truths, we will decode the hidden terminology of the Holy Bible. However, truth is scattered across history. We will bridge the gaps by cross-referencing biblical texts with the sacred mysteries of ancient Egypt, the clay tablets of Mesopotamia, and esoteric traditions from every corner of the world. By stripping away centuries of dogma, this series will challenge everything you thought you knew about divinity, religion, and your own origins. Prepare to see the matrix of the ancient world uncovered. Welcome to the ultimate shift in consciousness. Most people believe God is an invisible, all-knowing spirit floating in the clouds. But what if the text tells a completely different story? Think about the Garden of Eden. In Genesis, Adam hides behind a bush, and God literally has to walk through the garden and ask, "Where are you?" An all-seeing, omnipotent consciousness does not need to search for man behind a tree. The truth that religion hides from you is simple. The God of your Bible had 2 eyes, 2 legs, and limitations. Today, we are jumping straight into the raw definition of a God. We will expose who these beings actually were, how they modernly manifest as the United States government, and why failing to serve them carries brutal, real-world consequences. To understand the Bible, you must first understand ancient Sumer. The ancient texts do not speak of abstract spirits, they speak of the Anunnaki. These were highly advanced, physical, flesh and blood beings who ruled the ancient world. When the Bible speaks of God creating man in his image, it is referencing the genetic work of these Sumerian figures, most notably the brothers Enki and Enlil. The material illusion. When people today pray for a new car or financial wealth and thank God, they are deeply mistaken. A flesh and blood creator from antiquity does not manage modern bank accounts or assembly lines. The blind spots. The biblical narrative explicitly mirrors these physical limitations. If a deity has to look for you, that deity is not all-knowing. They were powerful rulers, not the ultimate source of the universe. What does it actually mean to serve God? In the ancient world, the commandments of God were not purely spiritual suggestions for entering heaven. They were the civic, legal, and tax codes issued by the ruling class to govern humanity. Most people will think of God's law as the 10 commandments that Moses gave to the Israelites. What if I tell you that Moses, who studied in Egypt, actually took those commandments from the Constitution of Egypt? To understand the 10 commandments, we have to look at why laws were introduced in the first place. The ancient Sumerian tablets tell us that before the Anunnaki intervened, early humans lived in a wild, scattered, and unorganized state. The gods did not give laws to save human souls. They created legal frameworks as a tool to domesticate, organize, and civilize mankind so they could manage them effectively. In Sumer, this divine mandate of civilization was known as the pronounced Me, a set of physical blueprinted decrees governing everything from kingship and priesthood to tax collection and prostitution. These laws were passed down to human proxy kings, creating the oldest known legal structures on Earth, such as the Code of Ur-Nammu and later the Code of Hammurabi. When you obeyed the law, you were simply serving the administrative machinery of the physical gods. As the influence of these physical gods migrated across the Fertile Crescent, this exact same governance blueprint was established in ancient Egypt. Millennia before the biblical Moses was said to have climbed Mount Sinai, Egypt operated under a highly sophisticated cosmic and civil constitution rooted in Mat, the principle of truth, balance, and order. The core of the Egyptian spiritual and civil constitution was recorded in the Papyrus of Ani, widely known today as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. To enter the afterlife or remain a citizen in good standing in Egypt, an individual had to recite the 42 negative confessions before the gods. When we place the biblical 10 commandments directly next to these older Egyptian laws, the plagiarism becomes undeniable. Moses, who the Bible admits was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, simply condensed Egypt's massive civil constitution into 10 compact rules for his own wandering citizens. The commandments were never a mystical, spiritual ladder to heaven. They were a practical Bronze Age penal code designed to keep populations from killing each other, destroying state property, or disrupting the tax-paying labor force. When you were told you were sinning against God, what it actually meant was that you were breaking the municipal laws of the ruling class. This is why, in the modern world, the throne rooms of the Anunnaki have simply been replaced by modern parliaments, senates, and courthouses. The legal systems we obey today are not divine rules. They are the evolving corporate bylaws of the physical gods who still run the planet. Quite simply put, serving God simply meant obeying the government and its laws, accepting civilization and ending the ways of barbarism. What were the consequences of refusing to serve God's law? In the Bible, we are taught that cities like Sodom, Gomorrah, Jericho, and Babylon were destroyed by the supernatural wrath of God due to human sin. But when you look at the older records of Sumer, the veil drops. The destruction of cities wasn't a mystical act of spiritual judgment. It was the result of literal, physical warfare between competing Anunnaki factions using advanced weaponry. The ancient Sumerian texts, known as the Laments for Ur and the Era Epic, describe the devastating downfall of Sumerian civilizations. The texts explicitly record that the gods, primarily Enlil and Era, decided to wipe out cities because humanity had become too numerous, loud, and unruly to manage. In short, the many humans were breaking their laws. The texts don't describe a spiritual curse. They describe a physical catastrophe. They speak of an evil wind that blanketed the land, turning the sun black and poisoning the water supply. People dropped dead in the streets with no visible wounds, a description that perfectly mirrors radiation sickness or chemical warfare. These physical gods used what the texts call the weapons of terror to obliterate entire cities to re-establish total control over their human workforce. The biblical destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is simply a retold, localized version of this Sumerian military campaign. As humanity fractured into different regions, they were divided among different physical gods who operated as regional warlords. This is where the biblical ban on serving other gods comes from. It wasn't about choosing the right religion. It was about political and geopolitical allegiance to a specific ruler. Consider the biblical war against Baal, frequently identified with the Canaanite and Phoenician factions. Baal's legal and religious system required human child sacrifice, literally burning infants alive in the fires of Tophet to secure military victory and agricultural wealth. The God of the Bible, the competing faction. This was a direct violation of his law and a threat to his human asset pool. When the Bible records God commanding the total annihilation of Canaanite cities, ordering the slaughter of every man, woman, child, and animal, it was an act of brutal geopolitical warfare. One physical god was systematically wiping out the entire infrastructure, population, and culture of a rival god to prevent their influence from spreading. Over millennia, the throne rooms of the Anunnaki evolved into modern parliaments, senates, and palaces. The legal systems we obey today are the direct descendants of the ancient dictates of those physical gods. This ancient template of city destruction, resource control, and total warfare has not vanished. It has simply been modernized. Today, the active head of the beast of Revelation, the United States of America, plays the exact same role as the wrathful gods of antiquity. In the ancient world, if a city-state disobeyed the commandments of the ruling god or started serving a rival deity, the god sent fire from heaven, poisoned their water, or authorized an invading army to flatten their walls. Today, if a sovereign nation refuses to obey the mandates of the active head of the beast, the U.S. and its global financial system, the divine wrath is deployed instantly. Instead of an evil wind, the modern beast uses devastating economic sanctions, asset freezes, and banking lockouts. If a nation completely rebels, such as trying to bypass the global petrodollar or trade outside the system, the beast unleashes literal fire from heaven through drone strikes, cruise missiles, and total military invasion, leaving modern cities like Baghdad or Tripoli in ruins, just like Sodom, Gomorrah, and Ur.